friends. Welcome to another episode of Talk with Renee Dalo. It is me, your host, Renee Dalo. And this week I'm here with the lovely and fabulous Joan Love. Joan, how are you?
I am very good. Thank you. And you?
I'm very good. I'm caffeinated.
Oh, yeah, I'm very
Monday
caffeinated.
morning.
I'm on like
Yeah.
2, so I'm like, I need to take a break.
My husband always says, like, when I record, because, I only record on Mondays. I say that like everyone knows. Now that I only record on Mondays. And I'm not a morning person. I'm just not. Like, anything before noon is like, it's early. It's early for me. So he literally woke me up this morning with a cup of coffee and was like, I checked your schedule. You have to talk to someone.
Aww.
And I was like, oh, thanks, son. Because I don't want to say I'm not a nice person without caffeine, but I'm a different person before caffeine. And I feel like that's okay in the event world, right?
Yeah. I have a lot of clients and 3 kids. So it starts with my husband in the morning. He makes me my first coffee. Then I get to the office, I make my second coffee. Then after lunch, I have my green tea, to like pretend that the caffeine is healthy. And then when I get home and to the kids, I have my fourth one. Like that's how my day goes.
I love it. Well, okay, so you started in weddings,
Yes.
and
Well,
then you
yes, I
transitioned.
started when
You're
I
like,
first
well,
started doing events, I started corporate.
mm,
But when I started my company, it started in 2008 during that whole financial collapse.
oh,
So when I actually
yes,
started my own business, I started with weddings because I was like, okay, well, corporate ain't doing anything right now. So let
right,
me just attack weddings. Stayed there for like 5, 6 years.
yeah. This is not a scripted question. I just want to ask you because we seem to be in
Yeah.
another sort of downturn. I don't want to say, listen, I'm not calling it a recession, and everyone right now in the wedding industry is running around yelling about how slow it is. And I mean, you guys, you're gonna hear that you're hearing this episode like the week we record it. It's not that slow for me in my wedding planning business. We just booked 3 clients last week. So, this idea that like it is slow, I don't know. But because you survived 2008, 2009, is there anything that you could tell folks who were not in business back then that helped you either in your mindset or with like tactical strategy at that time?
I think that the best thing is just to diversify what type of events that you're doing, right? Because when I
Yeah.
first started, I started in New York as an intern, and then for years I did a lot of I said like corporate events. And when, like I said, when I started the business, I was like, okay, let me do weddings because you have to diversify. If one thing is slow, which by the way, I've heard the same thing from a lot of the wedding planners that I actually work with. First of all, in Miami, I like to think we're all one big community, but also since I focus on corporate events a lot, sometimes I get a lot of wedding inquiries and I pass them on. So I'm always working with wedding planners, passing them business. And I also hear that it's slow. They're like, it's kind of slow like right now.
Yeah.
I feel like we're fully in a recession and people are also being smart with their money, right? They're eloping, they are, you
Yeah.
know, saving for that house that they might one day be able to buy.
Yeah.
So there is a slowdown in the market there, and I think there is a little bit of slowdown in the corporate, but I don't think that people should fear that because slow doesn't mean nothing, and there's still people doing events, so you just kind of have to like chase after them and also diversify, which is what we did. We went into weddings 5, 6 years until a corporate client called us to find a venue, and that's how we got back into corporate. I'm like, oh yeah, corporate. And then we started getting back into corporate again. So I think that by diversifying your skills, and actually I'm going to throw another one at you because this is the one I actually teach a lot of my clients about, and it's the step that we are in right now.
Mm,
Weddings, corporate, owning your own events, owning your own ticketed events and making money there, because I
yep.
got tired after so many years of fundraising for people. Like I would get them the
Mm,
sponsors, I put the event together, I do everything as a planner producer, and then I see them charging the tickets. I'm like, but wait a minute, I did all the work. So I'm like, you just put your brand. So I think
yes.
that planners have also this opportunity, this third opportunity to also own your own event, own your own ticketed events. You already have the talent, and that's another stream of revenue that you can tap into.
Yeah, I'm dying to talk about that 100%. I also want to acknowledge that it is an election year in the States, right? And so we always see people
Yes,
spending a little bit less, sort of figuring, like trying to
yes.
anticipate what may or may not happen. So like I get it. And I also want to clarify, I'm not sitting up here being like, it's not slow for anyone else because it's not slow for me. No, I know. Again, people are saying it's slow, but I agree with you, the diversification. I will say this year, because my associate planner is taking on a lot more lead planning this year. He's brought in a mitzvah. He's brought in a celebration of life. He's brought in corporate. He's out there hustling,
Yeah,
getting the work. And
yeah,
you know, maybe me 10 years ago would have been like, I don't really want to do a celebration of life. Like, that's not our thing. It's all our thing because the skill set that we have is not just for weddings. Like, I used to really be in
Right.
that camp of, I don't like corporate. There's no heart in it. I think that maybe I had been short-sighted in the past, and that's why I was really interested in having you come on, for many reasons, but specifically to talk about this transition, or how others can transition from, weddings into a more corporate mindset. Because you said something to me that I was like sort of furious about, is that most of the event producers you see in the corporate world are in fact men.
Yes. Yes, I know.
Most wedding planners
So
are
when you
women.
start off, right? So when you start off with wedding planners, again, wedding planners, most of them are women. Women have empathy. We take care of our community. We love love. Like that's kind of like our space, right? But then it was interesting to me as I started, climbing the ranks of corporate events and I started working for bigger and bigger clients. And I started seeing these giant events. And when I would, go to the meetings, I was the only woman at the table. And I was like, wait a minute. Like, why is this giant festival, just this big event? Like, why are they all men instead of like, I
Yeah.
know so many talented wedding planners. And I don't know, I'm still analyzing it. I think it has a lot to do with like women and confidence and how we like to play small until we're confident enough, right? And men are not
Yes.
like that. Men,
No.
I've noticed, and I have one particular man in my brain. I'm not gonna say his name, but they will climb the ranks without the competence because they have the confidence, right? They'll be like, "Oh, I'll do that big event. Yeah, I can do it." And I'm like looking, I'm like, "But dude, you can't do like half of the crap I do." Like, here we go. Here we go with the cursing. Sorry. You can't do half of the shit I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
And but they have that confidence to pitch themselves and the women don't. And I find myself going up to some of the wedding planners again that I work with, and I'm like, girl, like NARS is doing this event, you could have totally done that. Oh no, I don't know anything about corporate events. I'm like, I've seen you do more complicated weddings, like, get up there. And that's kind of one of my missions, is to kind of show them that you already have 80 to 90% of the skills you need to tackle that corporate event, to tackle that brand. And it's also a lot of fun.
It's also fun making more money. Say that too.
Oh yeah.
Uh,
That's the
I
best
think,
part. The best
right.
part is the money.
I think sometimes what I hear, at least from my coaching clients, about like that journey into corporate and like not knowing if they have what it takes, is the language seems very different. Do you think that's true?
Yeah. Yes, it is. It is a little bit, but again, I really think that wedding planners have again about 80 to 90% of skills you already have them. There's just some things, like for example, there's more legality in it because there's more liability, right? Now it's a brand. It's not just a couple. Now it's an entire brand that can be sued, that a million things can happen. So there is some language that is different, but I think it's something that is teachable very quickly, and you
Hmm.
can just learn those skills and go into it like fast, because again, budgets, vendor relationships, staff management, it's all the same, right? It's like it's an event. It's all the same. Think about a wedding. It's just that yes, there is a little bit more that you have to take on as far as the legal aspect and the liability, yet there's partners out there. So really it's also about knowing what partner to have. For example, permits. In a venue for a wedding, usually don't deal with permits. In a
Yep.
venue for corporate, you're going to deal with permits.
Hmm.
Just get a permit expediter. Within 1 year of working with a permit expediter, you will learn everything about permits and you'll be able to do them yourself. So
Yep.
it's just about putting that in your budget and then learning things like
Yeah.
that.
I remember before I started Moxie Bright, my company, 12 years ago, I was an assistant to the event producer at the Geffen Playhouse. And every year, the Geffen Playhouse is like this, it's a small theater, but a very, very well-known theater right by UCLA in Los Angeles. And she needed help for the gala. So I came on board to help her for the gala. And the first thing she had me do was go find someone who can pull us a permit to close the street for 4 days. Because we were
Right.
building this tent on the street right outside of one of the entrances to UCLA. That, I mean, when
Yep.
I tell you like it was like the full body sort of sensation of like, oh, I know how to do that. I did not know how to do that, but I figured out who to get in
No.
contact with, who could help me do
Yeah.
that, and there was a team of people that did
Exactly.
it. But
Google is free.
Google is free, and that was a million years ago when it was like, there were less people available on the internet to tell us how to do things. But I remember having kind of a shock about like, oh, we have to do what? And she's like, yeah, well, the gala's on the
Yes.
street, like the street, and we have to close it for 4 days because 3 days of build out. No, 2 days of build out the event and then 1 day of load out. And I was like, of course we do. Of course.
Mhm.
I know exactly what you're talking about, Jenny. Absolutely. Let me go get that permit for you. Like there was a little bit of fake it till
Exactly.
you make it.
And yes, and they're helpful. Like for example, you Google permit expediter, and then you find one, and they're like, "Oh, okay, you're gonna need a drafted traffic plan." Do you know
Yeah.
anybody that does this? Yes, I know Andy. This is his number. Okay, hi Andy. I need. They will guide you through it, and yes, at the beginning, you're not gonna know what a life safety plan is, or you're not gonna know like anything over 10 feet, you need a structural permit. You're not gonna know these things,
Uh-huh.
but they're gonna tell you. You're going to go
Yeah.
through it. And the first time you go through it, you're going to come out of it and be like, oh, now I know. And it's just so
Yeah.
empowering and it's so great. So you just kind
Yeah.
of have to take that first step.
Yeah. So I know everyone listening is probably thinking, okay, great, great, great. But then how do you find the corporations that need planners? Like how did you break in when you first started to corporate stuff?
Well, when I actually received a call from somebody because they were looking for a venue. It was a fashion
Mhm.
client and they were looking for a venue in Miami, and they saw that I posted a lot about different venues that I saw on Instagram for my weddings. And I remember I was like, of course, yes. And then I found them the venue. And then little by little, I started convincing them. I was like, oh, but do you need security? Do you need this? Do you need that? And I started in April. And by December, I had the entire event. I produced the entire event. And then
Nice.
I made more in that one corporate event than I did that entire year in weddings times two. One
Whoa.
corporate event. I was like, I'm hooked. I was like, I need more of this. This is fantastic. And I had done smaller corporate events before at the beginning, but it had been like again 5 6 years since I had done one with my own company. So
Yeah.
it was fantastic. And then from there, of course, word of mouth as a planner, everybody knows word of mouth is one, but also I'm always looking. I live in Miami, Florida. We have a lot of events down here, and I'm always looking. I'm always looking online. I look at all our event magazines, our event bloggers, like who's doing events, and I reach out to them. We do a lot of reach out to the brands when I see that they do an influencer dinner, or they do a fashion show, or they do a brand launch, or they open a new building. We're like, oh, okay, that person does events, therefore they're a potential client, and then we reach out to them.
And
That's
also
one of the biggest
festivals are
ways we get it.
Yeah, and also festivals are a great place to like we have, Coachella is like 2 hours away from me, and I know so many of my
Yes.
corporate friends have been in the desert for weeks building out the VIP tents. One of my friends did the Aperol Spritz installation. Like you
Correct.
it's a gold mine.
Yeah, exactly. So now all you have to do is go on Google, put up Coachella, or put up the US Open, or put up the Food and Wine Festival, and you start seeing all the brands, who sponsored, who put on put up a pop-up. All of those people are doing events, and they are all brands that are looking for events to do, and those are brands that you can pitch.
I love that. I want to talk about your own events because this
Okay.
is something that I have done in one part of my business, but I'm so curious to hear your take on it. I know you already said it's like you're doing everything. You may as well do it for yourself. But like, what was your first foray into that world?
So I think the first thing was just that frustration of like we did this giant festival in Miami. It's one of the biggest art festivals, and we got all the sponsors for them. We negotiated with the brands and designed their pop-ups. We worked with their marketing team and their PR team for all of the graphics and the invites and all of the PR strategy. Because when you do corporate events, you're the conductor, right? So you're working with all these different teams that this brand brings you. The brand is a creative director, but they have a PR team, they have a marketing team, they have all these teams, and you're the person doing the event. So you have to make sure that everybody has what they need and they're involved in the event however they need to be. So we were already doing that. And again, and then I was like, wait a minute, but then they're charging all, the ticket money, and we're just getting our which small little fee is not that small, but
Right,
compared to what they're making, right? I always say, like,
right.
what's next? Like, what's my ceiling? And that's how I felt as a wedding planner. I was like, okay, what's next? Like, I feel like I hit the ceiling. I can't do 100 events a year. I'd go crazy. So I'm like, that was corporate events. And now we feel that in corporate events, we're like, okay, we're doing a lot of corporate events. We're traveling a lot, but where's that ceiling? And then the next thing is what I call proprietary events, right? Events that you own. So that was the frustration. And that's how we started looking. And right now we're right in the throes of it. We have been interviewing a lot of event founders, which is very, very interesting because you see how they came up with these events and how they're putting them together, how they're marketing them, a lot of advertising information that they're giving us. And we're taking all of that information to put together our own events.
Yeah, I love that. I actually know two wedding planners, one in Canada, one here local, that are taking like their educational desires basically and making them into conferences. And it's interesting, right? Because
Yeah.
one of my coaching clients is the one in Canada. And so when we were doing the budget, like we were literally getting like tactical about like, okay, what kind of budget do you need for this in-person 1 day conference? You know,
Mhm.
the whole line item of planning, she was like, well, that's me. And I was like, we should still pay you. But it's such it was like a certain sort of freedom for her to be like, well, I don't have to pay an outside planner because I can do it. And I can also just run this whole
Yeah.
thing myself, which, I think is one of those things, like you said, about playing bigger, like playing up to our actual power, is like understanding that like
Yeah.
the skills that we have that we're doing, and I'm putting air quotes up here, guys, like little weddings, right, can translate to large scale events that you can get paid for with ticket sales. Now, I would say like you probably have to hustle a bit more to sell those tickets. I think you would probably agree.
Oh, absolutely. Yes. But I think that what I've learned so far in this journey that we've been on probably for a year now is that what I've learned is that the same strategies that these founders are using to sell out their events, like the marketing and the advertising strategies that I've been learning, and I'm like so fascinated by, these are exactly the strategies that the wedding planners should be using in order to fill their calendar. And I feel that I spoke with one, and he is the founder of Mud Girl, and we're actually going with a team. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's obstacle courses, and we're going through the mud. I
Oh,
love
I
that stuff.
heard of them. Yeah,
And he was telling me about his advertising costs, and he was telling me, he's like, okay, people think that posting something on Instagram or posting even a post on LinkedIn or anywhere, he's like, that's not marketing. He's like, if you really want to make money, you have to spend money. So his advertising cost, he said, it is $1 million a year, which I know that's crazy. So don't think about the number, but think of this. He has a 3-time ROI, return on
wow.
investment. So he spends $1 million and he makes three. So if you think about that right now, let's go down as a wedding planner. Let's say you spend 100,000. I'm coming up with a number, and to make $300,000. So those are skills that these founders have that I'm learning that also translate to the wedding planner, and that's what I'm learning. It's absolutely fascinating because you learn how basically how the big business does it, and
Yeah.
you can take those strategies and do them for yourself.
Yeah. I think a lot of wedding planners are scared of advertising, honestly, because at least when I was
Yes,
coming up, the only advertising we were ever taught to do was paying for listings and blog vendor listings, right? Or Wedding Wire or the
yeah,
Knot
or magazine. Yeah,
or
exactly. A
magazine.
magazine. I was gonna say like modern luxury magazine, The Knot and Wedding Wire. That's like basically what we spent money on.
And now we have to get into our heads that we actually have to spend money on Instagram ads,
Yes,
Facebook ads. Like that is where people
yes.
are. Well, I guess
Hmm.
meta ads. Because I don't know the last time I picked up a magazine for anything.
Yeah. And also Google. We did for a long time, even before we thought about this advertising thing. You always ask, like, oh, where did you hear about us? The
Yeah.
amount of times that we're like, oh, we just searched you on Google. And now there's this big wedding or this big corporate event. I'm like, oh, okay. Now, do I know anything about Google advertising? No. But I know about Upwork, and I know that I could pay someone. I can pay someone a couple $100s to set it up for me, and then
Yeah.
I can track it and I can see, is it working? So definitely, I say even start small, just taking a percentage of whatever you make for a wedding, gosh, 10%, anything, and putting it into advertising is just completely worth it because clients are not just going to fall on your lap.
Yeah. I also think there's a certain amount of power in planning your own event, especially if you're in a smaller
Yeah.
market. Like, so you're in Miami and I'm in LA. I think we have the luxury of a lot of options here. But if I were in a much smaller market and I wasn't seeing the kind of events that I wanted to see, I think I'd be way
Yes.
more compelled to like, let me put together this event, let me charge tickets to it, let me put in the world what I want to be doing, the level of work I want to be
Yes.
doing, and make some money in the process as well.
Yeah, and it's all around you. I think that again, like put on your planner hat and look all around you. I mean, you just said Coachella, Burning Man, the local Strawberry Festival, the Food and Wine Festival. They were all started by a person, by a planner that said, "Oh, let's do this little music festival or let's do this little strawberry festival." And it has turned into this giant thing, but it
Yes.
started with this smaller event that somebody put together and invited people. And I also always say do something that you love because it's easy, right? So it's easier if you say, okay, I love cooking or I love fashion or I love whatever it is, like spending time with my kids. And you take that and you turn it into an event. And that way you're passionate about it. Your community will probably be passionate about it too because they tend to be like you. And that's just a great way to start.
Yeah. I don't know if this is like a nationwide thing, but in LA we have this food market that's called Smorgasbord. I don't know if it's like a big deal
Well, I used
here.
to live in LA, so I know about it, but I don't know if it's a nationwide.
I don't know if anyone else knows, but it's a big deal here. And it was just started by some friends. Like they just wanted to have a food festival. Like, and then it became like a monthly thing, and then it became a weekly thing, and then the pandemic happened. But like it's kind of an institution now in LA. And it just started because of some friends
Yeah.
were like, and I don't even think they had planning skills. They were just like, we like food. So it can
Yeah.
be that simple.
Yeah. So imagine if you have planning skills, how much better it is because you have the skills, you know the vendors, you know everything, you know the venues, you can collaborate. It makes it that much easier to do for a seasoned planner than even for, the normal person.
Yeah. Have you ever gotten to do an event for like a brand that is just a favorite of yours?
Oh, of course. Gosh. Let's see. I have so many in my brain. But I do a lot of events for Dior when Dior is super fun. I do a lot of events for Dior and Louis Vuitton and all the fashion ones, which are fun because one of the things that I love is even though there's a lot of NDAs to be signed, non-disclosure agreements, like again, the legalities of a corporate event, we get to see their lines about a year before anyone else, which is fun because
Yes.
you're designing based on that, right? You're working with the creative directors. I even have they even send us, I remember Hermes sends us like all the Pantone and fabrics and things like, and I'm like, wow, like this is amazing, like top
That's
secret
so
information, right? Never to be shared, but it's kind of cool. That's fun, but then also it's fun. Let's see, I got to do something for William Sonoma and Trisha Yearwood, and that was a lot of fun because she's super nice, and it was coffee, and I love coffee. Again, we're caffeinated.
full
She,
circle, full circle.
yep, she did a line of coffee and I got to taste it. I was like, yes, all day
Love
long. I was so caffeinated and they gave us these bags of coffee beans, which is another fun thing. You get to keep a lot of stuff, right? So I remember Trisha year when we got like, I mean, I'm talking about those like, those like 5 pound I don't even, or 10-pound bags, those big sack things, those burlap
Yeah.
things like of
Oh, you got to
coffee
keep one
beans.
of those? Amazing.
Yes, we got to keep like two. My husband and I only had her coffee for like 2 years. We were like, we had so much.
Love
And then
it.
I did a Dior show out in Los Angeles. It was actually we closed down the famous the Venice Street.
Oh
We
yeah.
closed that down and did a show, and we got to keep like just all these boxes of makeup that were sent that weren't used.
Love
And
it.
they just like put them out. They're like, okay, grab it because it's cheaper for them to just give it out than to restock. And there's all these rules and stuff. So yeah, I get to plan and collaborate with a lot of my favorite brands, which that makes it again even more fun.
I love that. Back in my pre Moxie Bright days, I used to work at a venue here in LA. It was like a restaurant that had event spaces up top, and it doesn't exist anymore. And we had an ongoing relationship with Bobby Brown before Bobby Brown sold the makeup line.
Love
Um,
that.
and I'm a makeup girly. So, and Bobby Brown came to one of the events because she was doing like it was all for the artists, right? It was for like the salespeople, right? So she was like training them how to use the new product. So I ended up leaving that day with like a bag of like brand new Bobby Brown products, and I was like, my job is the best job because like,
It is,
listen,
right?
it feels silly to say like to get so excited about that, but there is something so lovely about like being on the inside of something as opposed to the outside looking
Yes.
in. Bobby Brown was just a
Yes.
lovely woman. So big fan.
Yeah. And I also, have you ever seen the show, The Marvelous Miss Maisel?
Obsessed. Yes, love
No.
it.
Okay, so season 3 was shot in Miami, and we got to do the season 3 wrap party. When I'm telling you that my staff and I were all just like, we were just so starstruck. We're like, there she is, and there's the
Yeah.
dad, and there's Susie, and they were all dancing, and we're in the back, like going like this. It was just so funny. I have it on my Instagram. I have like there's this part where she like throws her hands up and she's like, "We got the rabbi." So I did the
Yes.
same thing for my Instagram. I did it on the front of the venue. I was like, "We got Miss Maisel," and it was just so. Oh my gosh, that's one of those that you'll just never forget. That one was so much fun.
Yeah. I've actually met her a couple of times through mutual people here in LA, and she's lovely. Like, she's,
She
you
is.
see
She's the
someone you
sweetest.
admire someone, and then you're like, I hope that they're nice. And then I met her and I was like, oh, she looks like a perfect doll, by the way. Like, she's a
Yeah, she
perfect, like,
does. She
perfect
does. It's
human.
crazy.
But she's also exceedingly nice, and that always makes me feel good.
Yeah.
I always like to say when people are nice, because a lot of times people are like, you live in LA, have you met everybody? And I'm like, well, not everybody, but I can tell you who wasn't nice over a bottle of wine, not on the show.
Yeah. Yes. We meet a lot of
Okay,
those. And another thing I can say about that event, about the Marvelous Miss Maisel event, is another thing I love about corporate events. It's literally, we have this wrap, they call you. We have a wrap party. Here's our budget. This is the date. Goodbye. Like, I love how a lot of these corporate events, they don't micromanage every single little thing, because to them it's just another event that they need to do versus
right,
their one time wedding that they have,
right.
one chance to be like, the star of the show. So that's another thing that I love about corporate events, because they were so nice. We did everything. They showed up, done. I mean, I don't think we talked to them more than 5 times the entire time for such a big event that was their wrap party.
That is amazing. I think I've spoken to some of my wedding planning clients 5 times this week. So big difference. Big
Exactly.
difference.
So it's another, and again, they both have pros and cons. We still do weddings and we have the brides and the couples that we love, but it's just such a great balance to not always have the client that is like, calling you 5 times a week. And, you still get a little bit of the love and the nice and all the details, but then you also get the clients that are more the spreadsheet and the budget and the result and the efficiency. And I love that balance.
Yeah. I want to switch gears a little bit and ask you what I ask everyone, which is I'm always so curious from other entrepreneurs who are so successful about their self-care. Like, what are your self-care habits? Because I know we talked about our overconsumption of coffee earlier. So if I
Yes.
had to ask you,
That's the
Joanne,
bad
like,
one.
I know that's don't do that. Don't do what we said. If there was like, your self-care that you couldn't live without, what would that be for you?
Ooh, and that's a hard one because I'm also a mom of 3 kids, so self-care is definitely not something that I do a lot. But I think that more so than low SPF every day, like I'm a skin person more than a makeup person. I'm a skin
I can
person. Like
tell
I
your
love
experience.
skincare.
Yeah.
That morning and night. Like I have all
Love
my sprays in my car that I do in the car and a lot of SPF because I live in Miami and I'm from an island. I'm from Puerto Rico, so we just, you have to when you're in so much sun. So that's what the biggest I'd say, like self-care as far as that, but also balance. Like I
Mm,
know, and sometimes I struggle because I know that my company could be way bigger than it is right now. I know that. I know that I can wake up at 6 in the morning and go to bed at 9 p.m. and have one of the biggest event production companies in all of the United States. I'm confident about that.
yeah.
But I know that this is not the season for it with my 3 little kids. So to
Yeah.
me, that's self care. Like saying no
Yes.
to things and
Boundaries.
having that time that I leave every day by 5 p.m. to go spend time with them. I slow down. I play volleyball with my daughter. I play Fortnite with my son. Like all of those things, like to me, that's self care because it's like taking care of of my heart and of this moment in my
Yes.
life that I'm in and not always just being business, 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 client, client, client.
I agree, because you're never going to get that time back with your kids.
Exactly. And, I don't have the time anymore. Like when I was younger to do the massage or to go work out 5 times a week, I still work out. I have a treadmill in my office. So actually, like once, probably 1 hour to 2 hours, I actually work on the treadmill walking just because,
Same.
just to move my body a lot.
Yeah.
And our whole refrigerator, we're an all-female team, so our refrigerator looks fantastic. We have kombucha, and we have the Siggy's yogurt, and we have
Nice.
like all the Harmless Harvest, and everything in here is healthy. So we try
Love
to, we try to do as much as we can where it's not sucking our time, so that we have that work-life balance as much as I can right now until my kids grow up.
Listen, I don't even have kids, and I'm going to co-sign everything you said. I got a walking pad last Christmas, and I do the same.
Yeah.
I walk on the treadmill and I
Yeah,
answer emails. I'm writing a book, and I honestly, half of that book has been written on the treadmill because it's just
yeah,
that's where you find the time, and it's better, it's more healthy than just sitting here, right? So I feel like any way we
exactly.
can sneak in the self-care, we have to do it.
Exactly. Yeah. Just really incorporating it into your routine instead of like having to stop what you do in order to do the self-care, because then it doesn't happen. And that's what I noticed. Like I'll always prioritize a client or an event that's coming up or something we need to do over, yeah, over going to the gym or over doing something like that. So, or meal planning or whatever. I'm like, I'm sorry, I have no time for that. I'm like, I need to, produce this event and send this email to this client. So that's how I incorporate it in.
No, I love it. I love that answer, and thank you for being so honest. The whole journey of like self care has been my like deep work over the last probably 4 years. When we hit the pandemic, and
Yeah.
we were, we're all forced home. In LA, we were home for like a year and a half, and I really had to come to terms with
Yeah. I
how
remember.
badly I was taking care of myself.
Yeah,
Right?
we got a lot of your events. A lot of LA's events, Miami got them. So yes, I
Uh-huh.
remember.
Yeah, and then coming out of the pandemic back into work, I was bound and determined to not go back to my old ways. And so I'm always fascinated talking
Mhm.
to other successful women to be like, okay, what are you doing? What are you doing? Is there anything I can learn? And like there always is something we can
Yeah.
learn. Even if you've heard something before, you hear it again on a different day in a new light from a new voice, and you're like, oh, I should probably try doing that too. And that's the whole point of the
Yeah.
self-care talk. So thank you for indulging me.
Of course. You're welcome.
Where can everyone find you on the internet if they want to get a hold of you?
So they can find me on the website, which is Love Style Events, is the company that we do all our planning and producing. So Love, which is, yes, is my actual last name. I get that question a lot. I did marry Mr. Love, and I did marry him for his last name. I tell him that all the time. So it's Love Style Events. And then the business of events that's the podcast, and where we do a lot of teaching about corporate events and about proprietary events. And the website for that is bizofevents.com. And also the Instagram is bizofevents.
Great. We're going to link to all of that in the show notes so you can go find Joanne and
Yeah.
pick her brain and listen to all of her amazing knowledge. Um, if you could leave people with like one bit of encouragement for the day, what would you say?
I'd say take one step towards something bigger than what you've been doing. Because again, I think that what I see is that so many people play small because they're so scared. And I'm just like, just take one step into something bigger, something that you thought that you couldn't do. And you're going to be surprised that you can. Because I've been up there, I've seen all the CEOs, again, mostly male, of all these events. And trust me, they don't have anything more figured out than you. They don't have you have way more skills, you're way more competent, you just need the confidence. But in order to get that, just take that one step. Because I mean, I suffer from the confidence, we all do. But again, just take that one step and you'll see, like, the sky's the limit of where you can go.
I love that. I say it all the time. Confidence comes from action, not thought. If you
Yes.
want more confidence, you got to put
Yes.
skin in the game. You got to
Yep.
do it.
Yeah, you do.
Joanne, thank you so much for being here. This was a lovely, lovely conversation. And I hope everyone goes and checks out
Thank
your
you. It was
podcast.
super fun.
Yay. Let's do it again
Yeah.
sometime,
It was,
girl.
yes. We're going to do it again really soon on my podcast.
Nice. Yes. Yes. We'll link to
And then
that
I
as
can
well.
ask
Oh,
you all the questions I've been wanting to ask you.
yeah, when that happens, you'll see it on my Instagram. We'll promote the shit out of it. All right. Thanks, friends, for being here this week, and we'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Bye for now.